This past Saturday, broadcast live on The Zone, we saw a battle for the WBA Intercontinental Junior Welterweight title between Montana Love and Steve Spark. This was the type of fight that was supposed to be a homecoming situation for Montana. We've seen time and again through circumstances such as these that the hometown guy may have to defend his honor, his position, and his hometown circumstances in front of his fans. This situation proved to be no different, and we'll talk about it a little bit here in this video. In boxing, if you stick around long enough, you'll get a chance to see history repeat itself. And sometimes those historical moments are entrenched in knowing the path and walking the path. And for Montana Love, he discovered that there is a difference between the two. In his super lightweight fight where Steve Spark upset him by DQ inside of 6 rounds, it's a lesson to us all. Sometimes fighters really need to be focused on their craft, and the task at hand can always be more difficult when you're at home. Now, this super lightweight fight was supposed to be a homecoming of sorts for Montana, and Spark, who is from the UK, comes in to really upset the show. And forgive me, I said he's from the UK. He's actually from Australia. But with his record now of 16-2, he has 14 knockouts. And this disqualification victory for this Australian is going to catapult him for more opportunities in the future. But who is to blame here? I actually think that Love entered this fight focused a little bit more on external rather than within. and he paid a terrible price here. The stemming of his disqualification came when, after suffering a cut early in the 6th round, he elected to get into some roughhouse exchanges with Spark, which led to them going toward the ropes, and in some kind of weird form and fashion, Love ended up assisting Spark out of the ring over the top of the ring apron, which gave the referee an immediate cue to disqualify him. Some people feel like, hindsight being 2020, that was a rather quick act by the referee, David Fields. Upon further review, I don't feel the same. I feel that Fields acted correctly, and had Spark done the same, I would still feel that way. But you have to think about the landscape of what was transpiring before the head clash, before the cut, and before the tumbling outside of the ring with the assistance by Love. And that was what took place in the 2nd round. Love was deposited on the canvas in the 2nd round after a pretty good shot to the temple. And it was a moment that surprised him and everyone in the audience. But when you looked at the physicality of both men, you could see that Spark brought a greater physical presence to the fight, especially after the weigh-in. He's a bigger man, has a more lengthy, and it's obvious that the punching power was something to contend with as well. Now, how you respond from being deposited on the canvas is very important. And I take it that Love chose to be more physical himself. Instead of focusing on his boxing, the roughhousing is where he found himself after that. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because you're scheduled for 12 rounds. And in there against a man who is a bit more sizable than yourself, you have to devise a strategy of breaking him down. Love, who's also a southpaw, was having difficulty measuring range as Spark was coming in as an aggressor, but also looking to put Love in retreat. And it worked for the most part until the fateful moment in the 6th where he was pushed over the top of the ring apron. What I also noticed is that Love is not necessarily an aggressive guy unless he has certain advantages. But in this fight, it may have been simply after the weigh-in that he felt like he might have his own particular advantage over Spark. But when you saw them on fight night, you could see the difference in their sizes. Love is more of a compact guy, kind of stout, and Spark is a little more reedy and lengthwise, but he rehydrated to a greater size and presented a physical problem. Had this fight gone beyond the 6th round, we could have possibly seen Love hit the canvas again, because I just don't believe he was ready for this type of fighter. Sometimes styles makes fights, and you have to admit that when a guy isn't as focused as he needs to be, he can run into some problems. And that's pretty much what happened here. What's really going to be of interest is how he bounces back from this situation. Even in the after fight, he was trying to plead his case and everything, but he pretty much lost his discipline in this fight. Within the fight, I feel he lost his discipline way before this fight. He seems to concentrate more on how he looks on his ring walks, his attire that he's going to wear in the ring. He has this little thing going on with a dog he brings to the ring with him. All of those antics that have absolutely nothing to do with the fight itself puts him in a place and space where that's not necessary when you've got to get down to business. Should these two fight a rematch? Absolutely. But will the outcome be different? It remains to be seen. Something tells me that Love is going to have some problems going forward. Not just because of what happened here, but because I think he may be a little bit stubborn in learning about what's important. When you look at the age of the fighter, he's 27 years old. Spark is 26. So they're right there with one another. And these are entering prime years. Can Love abandon the BS and get down to serious boxing? I'm not so certain. Sometimes guys feel if they can't do these things, these extra antics and whatnot, they just don't feel like themselves. They just don't feel strong. Well, there's a problem in that because you've got to shore up your abilities. The way that you box, the tools of the trade in boxing, getting your mental faculties in order so that the physical can be prepped to go the distance. These are principles that sometimes the younger fighters of this era are not necessarily getting before they get to the point of true competition and challenges. Another reason that many of them find themselves completely satisfied with fighting lesser opposition, padding their records, so to speak. But you can turn a stumbling block into a stepping stone and overcome the circumstances that you found yourself in on this dreadful evening with this horrible performance, Montana Love. And the first thing you would want to do is want to straighten yourself out. We've seen plenty of fighters, the showboat tactics, the glamorous wardrobes, and all of the effects upon getting to the ring, and then once inside the ring, having not much to offer up other than some embarrassment. This is going to be a tough one, but he can do it. But it is up to he and only he. The trainers can't do it for him. Family can't do it for him. Friend and foe cannot do it for him. He's going to have to change his mindset. That is if he wants to be successful in the sport of boxing and be amongst the elite. There's no doubt he has talent. No doubt at all. But the way that this fight played out, I've seen these scenarios so many occasions over the years, not just recently, but over the years in boxing. There's Anthony Hembrick, former U.S. Olympian, the same type of circumstance that saw him lose after showboating and coming to the ring unfocused, and he was embarrassed on national TV. It happens. But are we to learn from it or just be entertained of it? That's up to the fighter. And we have to see exactly how Montana Love decides to embrace the lesson that was brought to him here. Is he capable of overcoming? Again, as I said before, absolutely. But will he want to? Or will he just want to look good? It remains to be seen. And he is the only one that can answer that question. But that question has to be asked. What do you think? This is Stormy B. Man. That's my editorial on this situation that took place on Saturday, November 12th, live on DAZN. Montana Love against Steve Spark, ending in a DQ. What happens next is up to the fighters. That's all I have for you at this time. Shout out to the mighty LDBC and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. And do you think that Montana Love has enough to bounce back? Or has he hit the ceiling? Be honest with yourself, because he's going to have to be honest with himself. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.